The Blind Shovel, an arts and music podcast. Today I speak with Dave Juskow, comedian and all-around funny man. Enjoy. Not a complicated podcast.
I figured.
It's based on the surroundings?
Well, yeah, kind of. And the fact that there was no microphones.
Well, this is the future.
I think it might be. This is very convenient because, you know, even the ones I do at the Comedy Cellar, I mean, you have to talk into the microphone. I mean, this is just relaxing. You can get, you know, a lot from a person.
Of course.
Just relaxing and pretending that nothing's really happening.
So tell me about that Comedy Cellar podcast.
Oh, well, it came out of COVID. We were trying to do it was called the Comedy Cellar Nightly Show, and I used to host it every once in a while. This guy, Bobby Kelly, he's a comedian, he usually hosts it, but then when he couldn't make it, I would host it. And then we just kept doing it because we really liked doing it. And then we went into the studio. They have a really lovely studio over the Comedy Cellar. You know, nice place, nice chairs and setup, and it looks good. You know, camera ready stuff, and because it's on YouTube, live on YouTube.
Yeah.
So we do it live every Tuesday at 6:00, and sometimes I have good guests. This past Tuesday, I had an excellent guest, old school guy I used to know from the '80s from doing comedy, and it was fantastic because we were talking old school comedy. But then I also had somebody who's just starting in comedy the week before.
Interesting.
Because I like getting the mix.
So how long have you been doing comedy?
How long have I been doing it, or just no? I'm just
well,
kidding.
No,
I'm kidding.
Fair.
I like to make fun.
Stand up as a profession
since 1983. Oh, as a profession? Never.
Never. Okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
Fair enough.
No, I started in 1983, and I just never liked stand-up comedy.
Like the setup, the expectation.
Yeah, I like comedy, but I don't like stand-up comedy.
Interesting.
But stand-up comedy seemed the right thing. Everybody would say, you should do stand-up, you should do stand-up. And that was before everybody was doing stand-up. So I would go, the first time I was watching the David Letterman show, and he had the owner of this very small club in Brooklyn that would never be on today. He was the last guest. They would never have this crappy comedy owner on. You know, they couldn't get guests back then. And the guy goes, well, we got an open mic night Wednesdays. You come down, you sign up, we'll put you on. So I went to Brooklyn. I live in New Jersey. I went to Brooklyn, and I wore a tie, you know, like Seinfeld.
You're right.
And I went to I'll never forget, I went to the bartender, and I said, I'm here for the open mic night. And he goes, go see the colored guy in the back.
Wow.
And that was the MC.
That was the 80s.
Yeah, yes, it was. And that guy, the colored guy, turned out to be terrific. Not that he wouldn't be, but he was the MC. And we became friends. And then the next night he put me on at Dangerfields in Manhattan. It was very exciting, you know, early on. But then I was still in college. And then when I came out, I started doing it in the city, and that's when I met Dave Attell, Sarah Silverman, Jeff Ross, Louis C.K., Jon Stewart, and we just all kind of bonded together. Now those guys, you know, went to a different stratosphere because I just never really liked it that much. You know, they like to do it every day.
You don't like the craft.
I liked it more as a hobby.
So what is beyond a hobby for you? What do you like doing?
Well, I always just wanted to be, I guess, like an actor, like a comic actor, and write my own stuff and do. I always wanted to be on TV. That's all I've ever wanted.
Really?
Yeah, not movies or anything, just like TV. I was obsessed with TV. I'm still obsessed with TV, and that's all I've ever wanted.
As a medium?
Yeah.
Not film?
No.
TV?
I mean, I love movies, but I just wanted my own TV show. That's all I've ever wanted.
You've written for TV shows?
I have. But
you haven't had your own TV show?
No. Which, I mean, what?
It's coming, probably, right?
Well, it has to be at this point. There's not much time left. But yeah, no, I've been on TV, I've been on other people's shows.
Well, why do you like TV so much?
I don't know. I thought it was the greatest thing ever.
As a child?
Yeah.
You were mesmerized?
Mesmerized. I mean, when I was 5, I was practicing to host my own show. And I'm not just talking about like, I wanted to be on a sitcom for sure. And I didn't care who it was. I was never even picturing myself as the lead.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be in one. I wanted to be in the background. I didn't even care. Anything to just be on a set, in a show, figure out how it works. Like, I mean, even when I got older, I remember I was doing Sarah Silverman's show in California. And I remember watching the show first because I came on around, I don't know, maybe a later season. I'm like, wait, this is so cool. Being on the set of the show that I watch on TV. And I know nobody else cares, but I do. I don't know. It makes a big difference to me. I don't know why. I'm just fascinated by it.
So are you still pursuing that?
Not as much as I used to. It's more difficult now, I guess. I mean, I've always had regular jobs to supplement, but then I've taken time off to just do stand-up. And then there's always been an issue like that brings me back to having to get a regular job. Like 3 times in my life, I've gone for stand-up. And the latest one was 2019. And everything was going unbelievable. I quit my job at 20 years. Well, I got fired. I got Me Too'd. That was a thing back in 2019. Okay. No, nobody cares. But apparently I was set up. Cause,
you were set up?
That's what the people in HR told me that are my friends. And they were like, oh, she set you up. You know, like
wow, that sounds like a fascinating story.
Oh, this girl, she was the receptionist. She goes, when are you going to take me out? When are you going to take me out? Every day I'd walk in, when are you going to take me out? I'm like, I don't know, Friday? And so we went outside the office to a bar.
Yeah.
And we were having a good time. We got, I guess, a little drunk. Maybe I tried to kiss her because I thought that's what she wanted.
Sure.
And then she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. And then she's like, oh, you're going to have to work a little harder to get a piece of this. So there was no reason to believe it wasn't going to happen in the future, let alone she was like, I'll come over your house, I'll cook for you, we'll get high. So there was no reason to believe. I didn't even know whether I liked her. I just thought that's what she wanted me to do. Because I'm nervous enough as it is with girls even to this day. So then I remember we held hands and I walked her to the train station, and the next day, I was like, hey, it was a fun time last night, and she just wasn't talking to me. And then I got called in to the managing partner's office, and he's like, what happened between you two last night? I'm like, what are you talking about? And it was like outside the office and everything. And then they just fired me because that was the climate. And I'd worked there 20 years. I'd been in lots of scuffles before. And
Where was this job? Or what kind of job?
It was a law firm.
A law firm?
Yeah. But I was like, the manager and stuff of my department and stuff. And she didn't work for my department and thing. And again, it happened outside the office.
Wow. That's crazy.
And so anyway, they fired me. Or my friend in HR told me they're going to fire you anyway. So you should use everything you have that tell them so, it's bad for her too. And I'm like, I understand what you're saying. So I told them that she was selling cocaine from behind her desk.
Truth.
Well, I had text saying your cocaine is here. I have it behind my desk. So I put myself under the bus too.
That's valid.
It was totally worth it because she got fired and she didn't see it coming. So it makes me feel better and makes me sleep at night because she's a horrible person, I guess. Although I can't deny that. Wouldn't it be great to have her here and find out some more information? Sure. But everybody says I shouldn't do that. And everybody told me, to stay away from that girl. She's crazy. Even the managing partner came like, we don't mind, because everybody thought she liked me, because she just kept hanging around.
Interesting.
And I am an old man in the sense of I'll fall for it every time. I don't know if that's an old man. I'm just like a boy. I'll fall for a girl hitting on me every time and never think. I mean, I will think, what's going on here? Of course. But I'll fall for it every time.
How old are you?
58.
58. And you feel like a boy?
Yeah, like a little boy sometimes. Like in the sense of like, I'll fall for that still. I mean, what's the matter with me?
Sure. And have you tried to be a man?
Well, you've done I'm a man in certain times.
Have you gotten married?
Oh, no, I never got married. No, I can't.
No divorce?
No.
No children?
Actually, no. I asked this girl to marry me about 2 years ago, and then she died.
I remember you told me about how people just die around you.
Oh, 4 girlfriends have committed suicide, ex-girlfriends. Always one boyfriend removed. It's not my fault.
One boyfriend removed?
Yes, so.
So you have this catastrophic gravitational energy, is that right?
I don't know.
Is it a tragic life? No.
No,
You seem like a happy person.
No, it's hilarious.
Yeah,
No,
it's funny.
This shit is funny. Yeah, when I
It
asked
sounds
this
like a
girl-
TV show.
That's what I'm saying.
So you've lived it. You live.
Well,
a TV
here's
show.
the funny thing: is that my life is really funny. Everything about it is funny. Everything I do is funny. The things that happen to me are funny, and people love it. I mean, that's why they like me at the Comedy Cellar, not because I'm a good comic, because the stories that other people tell about me are really funny. Like Rachel Feinstein, who maybe we'll have at your club.
Yeah.
She's terrific. She just comes in telling all these stories about. She'll tell the stories of what happened at work, like when the HR director tried to kill me at the office Christmas party, or something like
murder.
that. Yeah, she choked me and broke a blood vessel in my eye. I irritate people to that point. You ask Hatem.
Yeah.
That's I think he's had enough. If people don't know
how do you irritate people? Is this something from as a young boy?
It's a gift, yeah.
You have had this gift?
Yeah, I have an absolute gift. I don't know what it is. You can ask any teacher or boss ever since. I mean, they always would keep me at these jobs because even though I was annoying, I was a good worker. But, some people find it funny and a lot of people don't.
Right.
And it's just stupid stuff. It's nothing ever.
People.
Yeah.
Some people can't be teased.
No. Yeah, so that's always been a problem.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it is funny. At one time, I went to VH1, if you remember old VH1 from, after MTV.
Yeah.
And I went to them with this television idea because I knew the guy who was in charge of development. And I go, I got this idea for a show. I don't even remember what it was. But then I said, well, what my friends want me to do is have a camera and follow me around on a day-to-day basis because, my life is really funny. He goes, well, I would like that. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I mean, the guy finally said, we'd like to do a show like that. Yeah, I'm not interested in that.
That's insane.
I'm insane.
You feel that way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't. It's funny because even though all that stuff happened, I wouldn't want a camera around all the time. I could never be the Kardashians. I don't know how they do that.
Like reality
Can you
TV?
imagine, how intrusive that is? Like we're just sitting up here and it's, you just said your girlfriend likes to sit up here and read. I mean, Can you imagine if there was a camera on her all the time?
No, I can't.
No, I don't know how they do it. And for 20 years, the Kardashians, just talking about it as an example, I mean, their whole life has been, just filmed everywhere they go. They're eating breakfast. It's like this would be the worst day of my life. I like to have, makeup and, get
So your
ready.
dream of a TV show is more like a sitcom.
Absolutely.
And what's the best sitcom in your eyes? Or some
best
of the
one
best
ever?
Yeah, what do you
Probably
like?
the Larry Sanders Show.
The Larry Sanders.
Did you know that one?
I don't. I've heard of it.
Gary Shandling.
Yeah.
And it was the greatest thing I had ever seen. And I was very lucky. I almost got on it. If I lived in California, I would have been on it.
Yeah.
But they didn't have any budget to fly. I said I'd fly myself out because Gary and I became friendly through Sarah Silverman. Mm-hmm. And so I went to a couple of the shoots and the tapings, and it was exciting again to see your favorite show. For me, I don't understand why more people don't get excited about that.
What made it a great show?
Just the everything about it. It was special. It was writing, and it was about late night television, the behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. So it was behind the scenes, and it was a show. So it was really interesting, and I cared about all those late night shows back then. And late night shows were big after Johnny Carson left.
Yeah.
Letterman and Jay Leno and all those people. It was cool. It was behind the scenes, but it was so well written. Gary Shandling was so nice. He used to let me read some of the scripts in advance, and the dialogue is unbelievable. Let alone the casting was incredible. And there'd always be celebrities on it too, playing themselves, but sometimes being dicks. Mm-hmm. Like they would have Elvis Costello on sometimes, and he would just be a dick. And I don't think he is in real life.
Right.
But that kind of stuff always turns me on, because it's like it was like reality, but not reality. It was a scripted reality show.
Right.
That's.
I assume you don't care about any late night TV anymore.
No, I couldn't care. No, it's awful. I can't watch it.
Who does?
Nobody does. Nobody does. I don't understand. I think because there's two problems with it. Number one, and first, is this okay? Is this what you wanted for the podcast? I'm just not like, am I talking too much?
No, that's about you.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first part is, if you're looking for an interview of a celebrity, so many commercials and applause breaks, you can't really get anything out of who you're interviewing.
Right.
Number one. Number two, you don't need them anymore, because with Instagram and social media, you don't need to see what your celebrities, besides Tom Cruise, who might be the last movie star, everybody's out there. We know what they're doing. But back when the Tonight Show was the only show, we didn't know what was going on with John Travolta or Burt Reynolds or something. You know, I mean, nobody. We needed to see them be themselves and talk. Oh, that's the way they talk? I mean, it was that simple. Now you don't need it anymore, and these shows are awful. Non-stop commercials, so at that hour I just watch Seinfeld reruns, like everybody does, or nothing. I don't understand how they're still on the air and how they make money.
I don't know.
I don't know who's watching. I don't know anyone who's watching. However, on the flip side of that, if they asked me to be on The Tonight Show, I would be so happy. Because it's a legend, you know.
Yeah, the name.
Yeah, you know.
I mean, who would it even be? Jimmy Kimmel?
Jimmy Fallon.
No,
I don't care for Jimmy Kimmel. We don't get along.
Oh, okay.
But Jimmy Fallon is great, and I've actually been waiting to go because I got this great story I can tell you.
Me or the...
Well, everybody's listening.
Sure.
I've been waiting. I haven't told it to anybody. If I ever get on that show, I'm going to go and be like, you don't remember me, do you? Because that's the best way to open a conversation.
Sure, it is, yeah.
He's like, no. And I'm like, 1996, Montreal. They have a Just for Laughs festival in Montreal, like a comedy festival in Montreal every year for years. And he was nobody. He wasn't on site. He was just a comedian at the time. No, Fallon. Jimmy Fallon.
Okay.
So you go to see a lot of people's shows, and he was performing, and he was bombing.
I can imagine.
I mean, yeah, he was just, I don't know what was happening.
He always bombs. That's his charm.
That's his charm, but it wasn't charming this particular day. I don't know why. And I thought it was pretty funny, whatever he was doing, but yeah, he was bombing. And I was standing next to his manager, who's this really pretty girl, and I think that's why I was standing there, so I always wanted to get to know her. But she was crying because he was bombing. And I had to console her and to say, no, it's going to be all right. This guy's a pro. He's like, I couldn't, she wasn't going to help me or do anything, but I was like, I had to console her because he was bombing so bad. And so she could go up and say like, oh, that was good, you know, or something like that. I helped him. If not for me, they probably would have dumped him.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't have The Tonight Show.
He'd be nothing.
He should be really kissing my ass.
Yeah. There's something I like about him.
I like him too. I mean, I think he's interesting.
So at this point, you said you're 58.
Yeah.
You don't think you're going to get a TV show, or do you?
No, I still do. I still have hope.
So you wake up in the morning, you're like, I'm trying to get that TV show.
I still have hope. I think everything could lead to that. First of all, I love doing podcasts.
Okay, cool.
I would like to have a radio show. I mean, I could talk for 3-4 hours a day. I mean, I do it every day anyway.
So is it correct in saying you started podcasting in 2019?
No, I started before that.
Okay.
Maybe 2015 or so. 2019, I left this job, however that is, and concentrated on comedy again. And I'm like, okay, this time it's going to work. But then I also started, and it was working. It was going great. I was also producing shows because I love using my friends and putting together shows. I usually host them, and then I know the best comics in the country.
Right.
So I love putting shows together and using all my friends. And I was doing these 2 shows that were going to make more money in 2 days than I would at my job working for a month, and then COVID hit. March of 2020 was going to be the big where, oh my God, it's all coming together, and it all fell apart. Yeah.
Well.
But that's okay. I'm getting back.
So you're optimistic. You wake up and you're driven.
I go back and forth.
Yeah.
Many times I am optimistic, like everything's going to work out. I have a cup of coffee, I feel like everything's going to work out.
Sure.
But there's many times I also get very depressed. Not that it's not going to work out, just about everything. I've always been very depressed since I was a kid. Like 3 times it's been like bad, where I thought maybe would like to commit suicide. And one time, I remember, I guess it must have been in the 2000s. I guess it was Father's Day or something. I was really upset. My father and I didn't get along, but that's not the reason why. And I remember I was drunk and I slept in the park, in Central Park, hoping somebody would do it for me, because there's no way I'm going to do it by myself.
That's a fascinating technique.
Right? I'm like, yeah, I'll just, because that's what I did when I was 17. I lived in Jersey, but I'd ride the subway up to the bad neighborhoods, walk around, and hope for that somebody's going to just beat me up or kill me.
Wow.
It's a strange way to do it. And nobody did anything. It was like, and so that night on the park bench, I'm sleeping there all night, sleeping on the bench. And I woke up and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I still had my wallet. I'm like,
What year was that?
2004.
Okay, so
5.
it wasn't like 1980s New York or something. It was.
Oh, well, the first time was 1980s New York.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I couldn't get arrested. That's the joke,
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
You think there's this stereotype that's kind of boring, that comedians, they're depressed or dark? Or,
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, that's a fact.
You think that's real?
Oh, that's every comedian.
And then someone
I know
like
is depressed.
Seinfeld, who seems to be outside of this, but everyone else seems.
No, Seinfeld's different. He's a mess in a different way.
Interesting.
I don't think he's depressed. He's weird. He's just weird. I don't think he's depressed. He's very angry, and he's just different. He's
particular.
He's not fun or funny in person. Like there'd be no. You could see why. I don't think he has any comedy friends.
Right.
Or maybe besides Larry David, and look who's
Similar.
That, right? But yeah, he's not a fun guy.
Can you think of someone who seems different, who isn't in that dark place often?
Who isn't in the dark place, or who's depressed?
Who's a comedian?
I mean, I know Sarah Silverman is one of my best friends.
Yeah.
And she also suffers from depression.
Yeah.
Now, when we're hanging out, I've never seen her depressed, but she's been on medication her whole life. It's in her play. She had an off-Broadway musical, and she's been on, Zoloft or whatever it is since she's been little. So I think that helps. But for some reason, all the comics. I mean, Dave Attell. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah.
I've known him since 1987, and he's always been depressed. But it's hilarious.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing funnier than his depression. And he uses it on stage.
Yeah, so it's like it's the best you can do with what you got.
Exactly.
You step back.
Where if I've always been like a fun guy, or come across that way, and but yeah, I do suffer from depression. But I think every one of my friends does.
It's a question I ask because I interview or this is the first comedian, but artists, musicians, writers, whatever. It's just interesting to see the differences. Because you're some of the most extroverted, at least in theory. Not extroverted, but you're going out in public. There's a social element. You're on stage.
Yeah, you're putting yourself out there.
Yeah. Artists, you're holed up in a room. Musicians are somewhere in the middle because you can hide behind a persona. But comedians, at least people think that's their real person on stage in some ways, don't you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're absolutely right.
But it's not true often.
No, the thing is, if you're a good comedian, this is what I suffered from for a long time. I just did imitations, and I was good at them, and I got to a level that was okay. But I never put myself out there. I never talked about myself on stage and everything, and that's what everybody says I need to do because it would be funny. But for some reason, I just don't care. I'll tell a stranger everything about myself, but when I'm on stage, I like to hide behind something.
Yeah.
Stupid stuff. I don't know why. But the comics that that are huge talk about themselves and their upbringing or their families and all the things they've been through on stage. The good ones do that. That's what you're supposed to do. And I used to hide behind imitations of other people.
That's interesting.
And I'm just starting to try and give out some information. I don't know why it's so tough. Because I'll tell the person I meet on the street stuff about myself,
right.
Oh my God, I had so much diarrhea today. It was all, I don't care. But I don't know why it's so difficult for me to, I feel like, I don't know. I like people and I like talking to them. But if I don't know the audience, I don't feel like I need to talk to them. When you're talking about artists, see, I think I want to do more, quote, artistry when it comes to comedy. I like doing more of a show.
Yeah.
I prefer some music and some theatrics to just straight comedy, and that's the way I've always been. You know, I've always tried to do more, maybe a visual presentation, showing some stuff on the screen, and definitely having music in the background, or doing anything I could do to break up what I can't stand, which is just an hour of somebody talking, depending on who it is. It just bores the hell out of me.
Does Steve Martin stand up back in the day? Do you like that?
See, that's exactly the kind of stand-up that I would like, because he was doing totally different things. I mean, he was using props and stuff. I didn't want to do that, but yeah, the kind of stuff he was doing was much more like even the King Tut song, if you remember. I don't know, that's way before your time and stuff.
I read his bio. I like him in films
a lot.
But
he hated stand-up.
I know.
So he was like me. I just didn't make it to that level.
Why do you think that is? Is that
Well, I think I didn't know the right people. I didn't put it. I mean, they kept asking him to do Saturday Night Live. I think living in California would have been helpful. Maybe
you
moving
lived
out there.
in.
I was always in New York City.
But you said at some point you were in New Jersey.
Oh, I grew up in New Jersey.
Okay.
So I moved here in the '80s, but to the city. But I think if I had moved out to California, maybe things would have been different. Maybe they would have understood me more.
Yeah, it was before the internet, so I guess you had to be where things were happening to more.
And if you wanted to be on a TV show, that was the place to go.
So why didn't you?
I've always lived in a 30-mile radius of where I've grown up, as I guess you have.
Well, I lived in California for 5 years.
Oh, you did too? Oh, I couldn't make the move. I don't know why. I guess I was afraid.
Is that because it's a fear, or you?
Yeah, it's total fear.
Family, friends, you just want to be around them?
No, I hate them all, but it was I don't hate, but it was a fear. It was a definite fear of moving somewhere else. I mean, it was funny. My plan was always to move to New York City. That was always the plan. I couldn't wait. Now I can't wait to leave. But that's all I wanted to be. That's all I ever wanted to be. And when I would go out to California, and that's true to this day, it was so depressing for me in the sense like everybody was doing what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so when you're not doing it, it's just awful. And that's what happens to people out there. You know, a lot of my friends, a lot of comics that I knew went out there, and sometimes they went to a level and then they were never heard from again, or sometimes they were just never heard from again. And it just seemed like if I was never going to be heard from again, I'd rather live in New York City.
Do you mean in a sense they went upward? And
some of them went upward, but never for a long period of time.
Right.
You know, maybe they had a couple years, or they got a show, and then they went right back down to earth.
Okay.
And then they chose to stay
moment.
out there. Right. Maybe a brief moment. So, I mean, the only person I know that, well, no, there were a couple people that hit it for a longer period of time, or maybe still to this day. But, that's rare.
Of course.
And it wasn't like I was worried about taking the chance. It was more like I like being friends with all kinds of different people. And out there, it's only, television and movies. It's only people that do that profession. And like you say, you like artists or writers and stuff. Maybe there's writers out there, but they're television writers. They're like real writers.
Specific.
And so I know people that work in stocks, and I know people that do art, and I know people in every profession. I know, just and that I like that, and I feel like that's the way to live. And so I don't know whether you know, but I teach a class at Montclair State University. I think I might have told you.
Yeah, you did. Yep.
So I just started. And
what's the class?
It was a class on the movie Clueless.
Just Clueless.
Well, it was mostly like, let's take a look at some romantic comedies that are much better written than you thought, than most romantic comedies.
That's cool, yeah.
So that and Notting Hill, these are movies that I think are very well written. I'm friendly with the director and writer of Clueless, so I've spoken to her, so I thought I could tell some of the students, what she was thinking when she wrote certain things, and it was good. And the guy who wrote Notting Hill is this guy, Richard Curtis, and I've been following his work for years. And these are above par romantic comedies, and I thought that was good enough for a class.
We did just watch Somewhere in Time.
Oh, with Christopher Reeve.
Yeah, very interesting.
Well, that's what I'm doing this semester. I'm doing a time travel course.
Right, that's what Manon was saying.
Yes, so, Somewhere in Time is one of the ones we're going to talk about, because that's a fascinating one, because it's a really interesting movie. It's not the best movie. No. The way he goes back in his mind is interesting, and he's a horrible actor.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, the worst actor I've ever seen, and yet the interesting part about it is I couldn't care less. Probably because he was Superman. Whatever he was in and his bad acting, I'm on board. He's pretty. He's good to look at, and he's a nice guy, and that's all you heard. And you can see him when he's acting. He's trying so hard.
Yeah.
And for some reason, we just give him a pass. Like, look at him. He's trying his best, and he's not, he's not like, it's not uneasy on the eyes. He's tall and strapping. It makes sense this woman would fall in love with him. Jane Seymour, who's gorgeous and stuff.
She is, yeah.
So, that's the kind of stuff I like to teach.
How'd you get that gig?
So, I have a friend who lives in Montclair, and he was like, when I was looking for work during COVID, he's like, they're looking for adjunct professors if you have an idea. And I knew right away, I'm like, well, I've been toying with teaching a class on Clueless. I've been talking to people at NYU, and I don't know whether they're ready. And
what about Clueless is the place you wanted to start?
It was really, every time I'd watch Clueless, and let alone I got to interview the director and everything, and I'm friends with Paul Rudd and stuff, that all happened later. That movie, it's just, when I would watch it, I'm like, God, this is so well written. It's just really well written, and it's interesting, and it's not like the other teen movies. And then, because then I showed the class Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which is also by the same director.
Oh, yeah?
Amy Heckerling. Mm-hmm. And again, that's not a regular, it's not Porky's, which is a movie I grew up on, which I hated. And I remember the kids in my high school, and I was telling my students that they were like, oh my God, have you seen Porky's? And I remember being in the movie there. I'm like, is there something wrong with me? Because I'm not finding this funny. This is awful. And I love, shit that's stupid.
Right.
Like Naked Gun or Airplane.
Naked Gun is great.
Right? But Porky sucks. And then the students they're like, should we watch Porky's, Professor? And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm trying to tell you. But yeah, this movie was above everything. And every time I'd watch it, I'm like, God, that's like, the father would come and like the throwaway lines were good. They're like, Dad, this is my friend this is my friend Ty. And you're like, get out of my chair. And that's funny. I'm just like, that's such a random line I wouldn't see coming.
Right.
Or something. And some of the lines that Dad has where, the kid comes over and he goes, listen, kid, anything happens to my daughter, I got a 45 and a shovel. I doubt anyone would miss you. That's a really well-written comedy line.
Right.
And the movie, every line is full of them. I mean, I probably have multiple examples, but it's if you really take the time to look, it's like, it's just really well-written. And
are you interested in explaining why a joke is funny like that, or breaking
I love doing that.
You do?
Absolutely.
Because like one person who comes to mind that is unexplainable is Don Rickles.
Right.
There is no, it's like absurdist.
Yeah,
but he made normal people laugh, which I find interesting.
There can't be another Don Rickles in this climate.
Oh yeah, for sure. But also, it doesn't make sense half the time. It's about feeling, like a feeling.
It makes no sense. He's like, oh, look at the black guys laughing. I mean, Jesus Christ. And you're like, and then the black guys were laughing, because I don't know, there was something about him. I think everybody knew he didn't feel that way. Like he was
he seemed like a nice person.
He was not raised right. He was a very kind person, and I guess people got the gag.
Right.
And like you were just saying before, is this what he's like off stage? But he wasn't like that at all. He was a kind person. He was married all those years. He used to just go out to dinner with friends. He was a normal guy, but his gags were just insulting people. That was like Jeff Ross. I don't know if you know him. Yeah. He's one of my other friends. He's the Roastmaster General, and he is one of the sweetest, nicest people, but, he lets people have it.
Yeah.
And it's great. And people love it. I mean, I saw him do it at Madison Square Garden. We were there with Chappelle, and he was opening for Chappelle, and I was with him because I've known Chappelle for years too. And he's there at Madison Square Garden, and he says, who wants to come up on stage and get roasted? I mean, who does that at Madison Square Garden? Who wants to come up on stage? He's like, raise your hand. And they had 10 to 20 people come up on stage at Madison Square Garden, and he roasts them. I mean, yes, is there a couple that he uses all the time? But no, a lot of it comes right from his head. It's unbelievable. One time he had a fat black guy, and he said, look, it's Martin Luther Burger King. And he just came up that night. He'd never said that before. It's a true gift. That's something I could never do. It's fascinating watching him work.
When you look around at your comic friends, comedian friends, are there archetypes, different types of comedians you see?
Oh yeah, and that's what the best part is those guys. I like all different types. I like sometimes the intellectual types, like a Lewis Black. I don't know if you know who he is.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Dave Attell and Lewis and Mitch Hedberg went on a tour together in the early 2000s. The three of them, yeah. And the three of them are nothing alike, which was great. But yeah, sometimes I used to like this guy David Feldman, who you probably don't know, but I liked his intellectual comedy. And then of course I like this guy who you don't know, called the legendary Wid. He's the greatest prop comic I've ever seen in my life. I'm pretty sure Carrot Top stole his act. But this guy, he's out of Philadelphia. I actually hired him for my birthday a few years ago, maybe 7 years ago, because we all used to open for him in the 90s. So there's a bunch of us that are older that remember opening for him, like Dave Attell, Jim Norton, Keith Robinson, if you know any of those guys. And so we always liked him because somebody has to be the prop comic, like we don't want to do it. But this guy has 10 garbage cans full of props and he just has them all lying on the floor and he just picks up stuff and does it. I mean, it's a horrible example, but he would have a dry cleaning bag and a hanger and he goes, "This is all I had to play with as a kid. And I played with it till I was blue in the face." I mean, it's just stupid. And yet it would make me cry laughing. And so I hired him for my birthday, and it was at the Comedy Cellar. I closed it down, and I was going to have Dave Attell open for the Wid. That was the gag. I thought that'd be the fun. And Attell was like, "I'll pay half of the Wid too," because he wanted to see him too. So they're like, "Well, you should open it up to the public." And I'm like, "All right." So I charged $5 for people to come in. This amazing show. It was me, Dave, Artie Lang, the Wid, and a couple other people that were amazing. And I opened it up. And people hated the legendary Wid. They were half the audience just didn't understand. And then I heard later, like 3 months later, I was at a tailgate for the Giants game. Yeah. And this kid, Lenny Marcus, came over and he goes, "Oh yeah, we were talking about it." Like, "Yeah, they got a lot of complaints." I'm like, "They did?" They're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "I didn't hear about that." They're like, "Well, they didn't want to hurt your feelings." It's like, wow. Because, it took him 20 minutes or a half hour to actually get his props off the stage.
Oh, wow.
So the next crowd couldn't come in. Yeah. But I'm telling you, if you look them up online, if you're listening to this podcast right now, you look them up on YouTube, and you tell me that's not funny, then we don't know funny.
I mean, I watched early Carrot Top recently, and some of it's good.
Right, exactly. Carrot Top, once in a while, is what you need.
Yeah. I mean,
and then there's people like Dave Attell, who is the best comic in the country, and there's people like Sarah, who just brings she doesn't bring her politics into her stand-up, because a lot of people don't go to see her because they think she's going to be political, but she doesn't do that, which is very smart. Yeah. So she has her regular persona and then her stand-up persona.
So what, besides that, you have the intellectual, the prop comic.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Then there's just people like who rattle off jokes like Attell, or there's people that talk about themselves like like Chappelle, who gives you the, his take on social situations or news or whatever, which is a little cross between intellectual and himself. And there's so many different kinds of comics, so I like them all. Like I like different kinds, but they got to be really good for me to sit through an hour. Many times I will go outside this area and watch, because when you're in the city you only do 20-minute sets. So many times I will go see somebody I like and a friend and watch them do a full 45 minutes to an hour. Because I really like that, because you don't get to see it rarely. There's this girl, Jessica Curson. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. She's terrific, and I told her I'd like to go see her do an hour. She does this, she's like a Jewish lesbian, and I've known her for years. And she does this thing where she plays this like insecure person, so when she's talking to the audience, she'll turn around and whisper into the mic and you can hear her thoughts, and she's like, "They're not laughing. I don't know what's happening here. I can't figure it out what's going on." And that's really funny, and I could watch an hour of her, and I trust her and I know she's really talented. But there's some people, if I gotta, nowadays kids who are just starting, like, "Oh yeah, I'm taping my half hour," and I'm like, "Oh, are you? Oh God, that's gonna be fun." they're not ready to do a half hour taped, but it's like that's the whole place is saturated between Netflix and all that kind of stuff, where that's what they see their heroes doing. So they decide this is a good plan, but they're not ready.
Have you done a special?
No.
Do you want to?
No, probably not. Like, for instance, I opened for Jim Gaffigan during COVID.
Yeah.
And we were at these, 4,000 people at arenas, like stadiums, but everybody was in their car. So we were in the parking lot. The audience was all in their cars. They weren't allowed to get out. It was COVID. So people say the reason, well, the people were like, why'd you hire Dave Juskow? And they're like, oh, because he's really good at just continuing to talk, and he doesn't seem to wait for laughs, and it doesn't matter. So I was the perfect person to use.
Wait for laughs, interesting.
Well, right, there are no laughs. There were no laughs. People could blink their lights, they could flash their lights, they couldn't even honk the horns.
That's dystopian.
And so, yeah, it's really difficult to do.
Were you in a bubble, or you were on the stage?
I was on the stage with
looking at cars.
There were 1,000 cars and 4 people to a car. So there were 4,000 people. I'm just looking out. I don't even know. I couldn't even see if people were in their cars, except for the people maybe in the front. Some of the people might have been sitting on their cars, but most of them had to be in their cars. And it went so far back you couldn't see the end of the cars, and it was on their radio, like a old drive-in movie. You had to listen to it on the radio, and they had some big screens. And the funny thing was, the first time I did it, I was just driving my friend Marina down, and he's like, oh, Dave, you should do it too. So I'm like, really? And he goes, yeah. And he's like, can you do 10 minutes? And I'm like, yeah. So I got there, and then his manager goes, Dave, can you do 15? And I'm like, I'm already stretching 7 into 10.
Yeah.
Because I don't have, I'm
It's
horrible.
not your thing, stand-up.
It is not my thing. But
where would you fit in these archetypes?
I don't fit in. I think that's the problem. But the thing is, the way I always put it is my friends, they always thought I was good. I could make people laugh because I'm funnier off stage.
So are you funnier on a podcast than
I'm definitely, podcasts are perfect for me.
Yeah, I find most comedians funnier on a podcast.
Yeah.
I think it's hard when they're expecting you to laugh, they're setting you up.
It's tough.
If you're a suspicious person, it doesn't always work. It's very rare that I can fully enter into a comedy act on stage.
Oh yeah, exactly. I feel the same way depending on who it is. Sometimes you laugh at people because they're going to be good, maybe.
Sure, preemptive.
And then you give them a chance or something. But yeah, for me, I had one really terrific set in 1996 that was on television, and I think that's why I got a decent reputation.
You were visited by the gods that day?
Yeah, I just live off that one set.
Can that be found online?
No, but I guess someday
you should put that up.
It was on Caroline's, the TV show, and they were putting them on. I don't know what happened. Caroline's just closed, so maybe she'll relook at the TV show and put it back on. And
you don't know what happened that day? You were just struck by...
Well, it is weird because the set never worked anywhere else. It was a very specific set. Remember, we were talking about artistry, right?
Yeah.
So I took a chance. And when I was practicing it didn't work. And this one day on TV, it finally worked. And it was, I opened doing a couple of imitations, but it was a 5-minute long bit. It was a risk. And I think that's why the other comics that I know appreciated it, because it was gutsy. And it was all about going to chef school. And it was a bit about going to chef school, and I combined it with a couple of movies like A Few Good Men and Officer and a Gentleman. And, it's just like, what about the soup? And the tough chef guy was like, you can't handle the soup! That kind of stuff. But it was a 5-minute, either all in or nothing bit. And
right, you can't get out once you're in.
No, you can't, especially since it was on television.
So why did you use something that had failed before on national TV?
I think I made it for television. Made it I knew I was auditioning for television, and I wanted to do something different. And that's what we were talking about. This is what the podcast is, right? Artistry, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to do something different and special and something that's not straight stand-up. I want to do more. And that's why I've never been able to make it. Straight stand-up doesn't work for me. I don't like it. It doesn't.
So why do you go back to it, just to stay
it's more like,
in practice?
It's a good question. I think it's more like all my friends are stand-ups. I mean,
Right.
obviously I have other friends from other things, but it's a good social hang.
Sure.
And the reason I go back to it also is because many times when I decide I'm done, I'll get a call. I'll get a call from somebody's manager like, hey, they need you, Jeff needs you to open for him, in Ireland. And I'm like, well, I'm not doing comedy anymore. Well, you better get ready. And they won't take no for an answer.
So what do you do in that instance? You have notes? Are you a note taker?
You
What's
mean
the
like
process?
when I am going back to it?
Yeah, like let's say you got an emergency, you don't have material.
I don't have material. I do the best I can. I'm like, let me look at my book from the 80s and see what
So you have a book. You have a.
Oh, I definitely have a book that, I've had for years that has, probably math in it too and
Right.
stuff like that from high school. I mean,
I-
I still always try and come up with stuff. Like I'm opening for, Rachel at this club. So I opened for Rachel Feinstein a lot. We were up in Boston, and I do, I open for my friends, and that's a good job for me. I like to host,
Yeah.
and I like to open, but I can't see myself as like a headliner. I don't think I have that much to say.
Right.
And I don't want to say that much. Plus, I'm fascinated by those people that can do it, that do 2 or 3 shows a night, that they don't lose their voice or their momentum. It doesn't seem like it's hard work, but it's ridiculously hard work.
Of course. No,
Yeah.
I'm trying to highlight process there. Like,
Yeah.
I'm assuming comedians all have different processes.
Oh, most of the comics that I know have a process where they write all day.
They sit
They
down.
wake up and they're disciplined. And like, I'm writing for an hour today or 2 hours. I don't have that process. For me, it either comes to me and I'll write it down. And then I guess if there's a gig, maybe I'll try it. I'm bad at coming up with punchlines. Nobody should follow my process. But the comics that I know that are the best all sit and write.
Really?
And go over it and try it out and perfect it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't care.
So besides this one set that you speak of,
Yeah.
are there other, I don't know if you consider it a major achievement, but when you look back on your life, like what are the peaks in terms of your artistic achievement, would you say?
Well, I mean that was a good one, but I mean artistically, I made a movie, but it's not an artistic achievement.
But it was
if
an
you read the
achievement.
reviews on Amazon.
What's that called?
It's called Turbocharge.
Turbo.
Yes, and it is a movie about the Cars, the band.
Oh, that's
the
a great
Cars.
band.
Yeah, they're a great band, and I always loved them. And I had this plan for years that I was going to tell the story of the Cars because I knew no one else would. That their music was amazing, but they were horrible live.
Oh, is that part of
Horrible
it?
performers live. Like the music was good, but they never moved on stage. And the reason why I thought of it was because years ago I was watching Live Aid, 1985,
Uh-huh.
when they
It's like Bono or something?
it was Bob Geldof put together Live Aid, and they had the hottest musicians of 1985, and they had all live one summer day in London and Philadelphia, and they kept going back and forth between both things. And Phil Collins took the Concorde
Yes.
from London to Philadelphia to play both shows. It was like the biggest deal. And I was so into the Cars back then for whatever reason. I was just waiting for the Cars. The Cars finally come on, and all they do is cut to Phil Collins' plane landing at JFK Airport. So the Cars are in like a small box on the right-hand side. And I'm like, well, I'm going to make a movie about that someday because it's funny. So I did, and it's like the worst movie ever. And if you look at the reviews on Amazon, people are so angry because they think it's an actual movie about the Cars. But it's historically correct, but I play Rick Ocasek,
Really?
and I get fatter as the movie goes on, which was an accident.
How long is this movie? I don't understand.
It's like 84 minutes.
That's a feature-length film.
Yeah, it's a feature-length film.
How long did it take?
Like a summer.
So it was.
We did it on weekends,
Okay.
And nobody got paid except in food and transportation.
And did the Cars ever reach out?
We had heard, yes, the guitarist, Elliot Easton, his brother came to the screening and he walked out. He was furious. But we've heard he's like that. But a lot of it's exactly like my comedy, really. Some people got it and they were like, this is hilarious. If you're high, this is a great movie. nobody would say it's a great movie. They're like, we get the joke. And then the other people are just angry, and you can read those reviews.
So it's a joke that potentially should have been a shorter delivery?
Well, the fun was making it a feature length. Could I
dragging it out?
Yeah. And it's got like comics and, Kevin Brennan and David Tell and Tom Shalhoub. I don't know if you know him and stuff. But it's all this information that I had in my head about the cars that I didn't even need to look up, that for some reason I knew. But it's all just that they stink in concert, and their big thing is going to be Live Aid. They're like, all right, now we're going to show them. They take dance lessons. Like, okay, we're going to show everybody that we know how to rock and move,
right,
and feed the homeless. And then the Phil Collins things happen. And we set it up beforehand that Phil Collins fucks with them early on, and then he
sounds good.
Back. But it sounds good
in theory.
We couldn't use any of their music, so I wrote my own Cars song, and it came out pretty good.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
All right, so you made a movie.
Yeah.
What else?
I don't.
You wrote for
TV,
TV,
you
right?
Mention it. Yeah, I used to write for TV. I've been on TV. I was on. I had my own cooking show for a while on the Food Network.
Really?
But it only lasted like 2 or 3 episodes, and I think they
what was that
realized I
called?
couldn't cook.
You need to cook for a cooking show?
Apparently, it was called Cooks Like Us. It was taken from Spies Like Us.
Right,
it was a bad title anyway.
That's a good movie.
Yeah. So I don't know. It seemed like.
So you like referencing good movies?
That's
good bands, good movies.
Look what I'm teaching.
Yeah.
I mean, I love movies and TV, and I love talking about them, and I can talk about them for days and hours. I mean,
you have a podcast also about Billy Joel?
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
I got to listen to that.
Well, I wouldn't recommend listening to it.
What's it called?
It's called Billy Joel A to Z, and we go through. It's still going. We go through every song alphabetically. Every song, there's 121, but we also add in the unreleased songs, and then we do album wrap-ups, and we have a guest after every letter, which all the comics we know that like Billy Joel. Gary Goldman, I don't know if you know him, he came on, and then he took me to the concert because they have the same manager, and it's fun, and it's with my friend Alon Altman, who's also a comic. You'll probably meet him because he might do the show here.
Sure.
And he's really sweet, and so it's a funny podcast. We don't just sit there talking about, well, I thought the chord progression here was really, I make fun of him a lot. Billy Joel, I'm like, he's so lazy and he just wants to eat. And, we heard stories from this guy, Scott Aukerman.
Yeah, Scott Aukerman.
From
Comedy Bang Bang, yeah.
Right, so we had him, I've known him for years, so we had him on as a guest. And he told us the story that the guy he does his podcast with went out to dinner with Billy Joel because him and Paul Rudd actually they redid the Bosom Buddies opening. Have you ever seen that?
No.
They redid this opening, and Billy Joel, it's My Life is the theme. So Billy Joel's there, and they got him, and they're like, no, you're playing it. You're not playing it, because somebody dubbed over Billy Joel's voice in the TV show. So they're like, you're not playing it like that other guy. And he's like, well, let me see if I can get it like the other guy. It's a joke.
Right.
And then they told us they went out to dinner with him, and he had his own clams in his pocket, and he gave them to the chef and said, eat these up.
That's fucking awesome.
Right. It's awesome and hilarious. And
yeah, that's the coolest.
So that's all we ever talk about is his love. He has his own clams he carries around. And that he's just lazy, and he doesn't want to write any more music, and he helicopters into MSG, and, we just kind of have fun. We talked to his drummer, which was great, and we're hoping to get him on as the last guest when we get to Zanzibar.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
So it seems like you like these kind of, I don't know if it's accurate, but low pressure projects, like less of. Have you ever done a thing that's super high pressure, long term, like 5 years invested, 10 years?
No, I guess not. Yeah, that's a good point.
Does that not appeal to you?
No, it totally appeals to me. I would love something like that. But I guess, I don't know, maybe I've cracked under the pressure multiple times. I don't know.
Have you?
Well, the cooking show wasn't great, I guess. But during the 90s when things were going well, I had a lot of auditions. I got so close to getting so many things. I was supposed to be it was between me and the guy that got the part from Bosom Buddies, ironically. I was supposed to be the dad in the TV show of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
In the TV show?
Yeah, which is even funny that I was going to be the dad back then, and I was like 34.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the TV show. I mean,
Nobody does.
Rick Moranis is the...
Right, but so Peter Scolari from Bosom Buddies was the dad in the TV show. And there was a whole bunch of stuff I was supposed to... I got so close, but that's everybody's story. But it was exciting, and I think if I had just auditioned more, some things would have worked out, but... when you don't get something after a while, they just kind of forget.
Right.
It was close, but it just...
But does it even appeal to you? Like, is it about having fun and less about these kind of...
Well, it's definitely about having fun. Like, I'm on that show, TV Funhouse, what Bob Smigel used to do on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
But then there was an actual
ambiguously
TV show.
gay duo?
Yeah, that's right.
Do they still do that? And there's no way they do
No.
that.
But
that was good.
Comedy Central picked up the TV show, and I used to work on that. And I did a couple of the voices because Smigel's been really nice to me. This guy who invented the show. So sometimes those kind of people. Like I auditioned for the Dana Carvey show. He had a show, and it was funny. Smigel brought me in, and Louis C.K. brought me in, and my friend Dino, who actually you look a lot like, Dino Stamatopoulos.
Sounds like I might look like him.
Well, he's a really cool guy. And they always, call me in, which is really nice. And so I remember auditioning for that show and doing the imitations that they asked me to do. And I could tell Dana Carvey just did not dig me. I mean, I could just see it.
I didn't know he had a show.
Exactly. So
there's so many of these. The Ben Stiller show.
Right. But everybody knew about that one because it won an Emmy.
Did it?
Yeah.
I mean, there's some
it was
good,
very popular. It didn't last very long.
It was short.
But everybody on it did well. Andy Dick, Janine Garofalo, him. I can't remember who the other guy was, but yeah. So some of the shows, even if they're short run, but right, nobody knew about the Dana Bell. It was called the Dana Carvey Taco Bell Hour. They thought that would be funny using an old fashioned sponsor from like the 50s or something, the way they used to do it, like the Texaco Milton Berle Hour.
Is that recent?
No, this was in the 90s.
Oh, okay.
It lasted about 5 episodes, maybe 7. I guess it was after he left Saturday Night Live, I guess, so.
I asked because even in my brief experience of making longer projects, it definitely becomes less fun.
Yeah.
It's like the labor of love. It's about discipline. It's less spontaneous. And I think for some people, especially in this era, it's not always necessary to do gestures like that. The attention span is so short of the consumer.
Absolutely.
That more and more people can make a podcast in 90 minutes or TikTok. I doubt you fuck with TikTok and all these
things. I just did it before I came here. I worked on a short film with this guy Joe List. I don't know if you know him, and Joe DeRosa. And I guess it's going to just be on TikTok. I don't know. I don't know what the plan is for it, but when somebody asks me to do something, I'm always up for doing it because you never know.
That's cool.
It's going to have this guy Matt Salacuse. He's really good at making. He's really good at being professional. In fact, tomorrow, do you know Mark Norman? You ever hear
he's
him?
Great.
So he's got a Netflix special coming up. So they want me to be in the cold open, which is him at a diner ordering his jokes off the menu. Like it'll be on the menu. I'm the waiter.
What is a cold open?
It's interesting because since we were kids, or I was a kid, when somebody did a TV special, before they come on stage and say, "Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Norman," there's usually a sketch,
right?
And they call that the cold open. And people have shied away from that now, but that's my favorite part. Like if I was ever going to do a special, I would totally have the open. Like Sarah Silverman just did her special; it just came out on HBO, and you see she has an opening where she has fake kids wishing her good luck, which is really funny. So it was like always a 30-second to 1 minute sketch before the person comes out, and that was always my favorite part. So what Mark Norman's going to do is I'm a waiter and going off the menu of his jokes and trying to pick some or something, and then I spill soup in his nuts because it's called Soup to Nuts. So I am hoping to be billed as clumsy waiter number 1.
That would be cool. So you always got interesting opportunities and projects, it sounds like.
Yeah. Usually, like I said, I usually just get calls from people, if they see me around or from other people and stuff. I always get a call. Every time I think everything is lost, there's always a call eventually. For instance, great example. It's coming out in January. I got a call from Sarah Silverman's manager, and she she's doing a new show called Stupid Pet Tricks, which is based on the old Letterman thing for TBS. And they're like, we need you to do some voices for it. And it's coming out in January. I already did it. And I play and it's, she's in and this is my favorite thing. This is what TV Funhouse was. The writer's room is all animals. So it's all real animals, but we do the voices, so they talk.
Okay.
So I'm the head writer dog.
Have you done voiceovers for?
Yeah, I've done a lot of voiceover. I've been on Scooby-Doo.
You got a good Scooby-Doo voice.
Well, I actually played Rodney Dangerfield in it. But not Rodney Dangerfield, a guy doing a Rodney Dangerfield voice.
Interesting.
I used to be on this show called Dr. Katz.
Yeah, that's an interesting show.
Yeah. So there's a story that the Dr. Katz people was great. It was an honor to be on that because it was really fun. All the comics were on it, and I was always on the fringe, So I was really happy that they liked me, and I got to do some imitations or something on it and play myself. And they decided to do another show called Giving Harry the Business with John Benjamin, who's in Bob's Burgers and Archer. Yeah. And my Cars movie.
Home Movies.
Yes. Right? You remember Home Movies. Wow, same people, right.
It's the best. It's one of the best.
Perfect. So these same people were trying to do another show like Home Movies, and it was going to be on ABC, and it was done with Spielberg. Yes, Steven Spielberg, not that joke like Steven Spielberg. No, Sid Spielberg. He's like a distant relative. But no, the Steven Spielberg and Jeffrey Katzenberg asked the guys that did Home Movies, can you come up with something for ABC primetime? And they were going to do this thing where John Benjamin plays a talent agent. And every week, I was going to pitch my one-man show. And it was going to be great, like just whatever it was going to be. Like, I ran out of ideas by the third episode. It's like Gene Hackman, one-man show, and I was just doing a horrible Gene Hackman, but just doing his movies. You might remember me from Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, The Package, Unforgiven. It was awful, but it didn't matter. So it was just fun. So, I mean, this was the one. I got the call one time. I was sitting at home, feeling sorry for myself, and they're like, hey, Dave, it's Tom Snyder from Dr. Katz. He was the guy that ran, not the Tom Snyder, the old talk show host. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, would you be interested in being in this show we're working with Steven Spielberg. We're about to go into a meeting with Steven Spielberg and Jeffrey Katzenberg, and we have an idea for you, and we want to make sure you're involved before we pitch it. And I'm like, is this some sort of gag?
Right.
What am I going to say? I don't know. When's that going to shoot? Is that in the winter? Because that's not good for me. I mean, I'm like, yeah, sounds good. And then you want to be professional? Yes. Okay, sure. That sounds, you're trying to maintain it. I hang up the phone. I'm like, bah. So I'm like, this is a go. I mean, they're working with Spielberg. How is this not going to be a go? And so they're like, ABC's like, yeah, we like it. Let's do it. We want 12 episodes. And Spielberg's like, no. We only do it for 24 episodes. And they're like, well, we just want 12 for starters. No. 24 or we walk. And they wouldn't budge, and they walked. And that was that. And that would have been the greatest thing that ever happened to me, ever. Because every day, every episode, my name would have been on. They changed my name to Jeff Juskow because Dave Cross was Dave. So, but I didn't care. Still, I was on it. It was going to be my voice. It was going to be a person that looked like me.
Right.
And I mean, it would have been great. And I would have been on ABC prime time, 8:30 on Thursday nights. And
but Spielberg wouldn't
we're
budge.
still angry at Spielberg. I've talked to Tom Snyder, and he's like, I'm still angry. I'm still in court with him because he wouldn't give the rights back. He was a dick. Oh, but wait, I found out more information just recently. So this was, 20, 30 years ago. About 3 weeks ago, I just found out new information of why that might not have happened. Jonathan Katz, who was Dr. Katz, I guess he's got a sense of humor like I do, and Spielberg didn't care for it. So when they were in the meeting, he's like, I saw Schindler's List, and if I could be honest with you, I only laughed like 3 times. And Spielberg's like, what?
You did that in the meeting?
I don't know whether he did it in the meeting or before they went to the meeting and they were just with Spielberg. And then I think he said something about Amistad. And he goes, I saw Amistad. I didn't get it. And so he's doing all these gags, which are so funny.
So
everyone in our community, but Spielberg didn't find it funny, so that could be.
Does that make you feel better that a joke ruined it instead of...
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yes and no. But, I mean, if I was in that meeting, I would have been laughing hysterically, and then Spielberg would have hated me too, probably. But tell me that's not hilarious. I mean, that's really funny to tell Spielberg in front of him. I only laughed 3 times, if I can be honest with you.
Well, at least you seem to have a good... I don't know if it's because it's distant, but you don't seem bitter about all these opportunities that almost keep hitting.
I guess, yeah, you're probably right. Maybe I used to. Yeah, you're probably right. I guess time has passed, so it's different. I mean, I wasn't bitter. I was sad, really sad. Now that you're mentioning it, there were so many. I guess I'm just not thinking of them. I had a job where I was going to be the head writer of this game show on MTV, and then for some reason that didn't work out, and I had all these things, and I remember I used to do a show. Oh, that's right. I was doing a show at this comedy club called Catch a Rising Star, called The Loft. And it was great. Every Tuesday night, it was a live show. See, again, not total comedy, like a show within a show. Like the Larry Sanders Show, in a way. So it was my apartment. This Catch a Rising Star had a kind of an outlay like your apartment. Like it looked like an apartment. So it was my apartment, and I would always have regulars, like a girlfriend and... my manager, and then we'd have guests come in, stand-ups, and they'd do time. And I would leave the stage and they'd do time. But they're basically coming to my apartment. And then MTV stole the show from me and just changed the name to Apartment 2B. And they totally stole the show.
And that show exists? Apartment 2B?
Well, it did for a little bit. In fact...
Was it terrible?
Well, to me it was. They used the Sklar brothers, who I hate, and everybody knows that, so I don't care. It's like every time somebody dies that's great, like Gilbert Gottfried or Bob Saget, who were my friends,
yeah.
I always say, but the Sklar brothers still survive! Which is funny and whatever. But yeah, I hated them because I definitely blamed them, because I took them under my wing, kind of brought them on stage, introduced them to people, and then they kind of stabbed me in the back. They didn't it was MTV that did it. Meanwhile, Zach Galifianakis was also on that show. And fortunately, he hated them too, so we bonded over that, and we're still good friends because he hated doing that show.
But what you're describing, is this particular to your life or the industry and the pursuit? Or do you feel that there's something unique about the way your life is unfolded? Do you know what I mean by that?
No.
Like, is it a hectic pursuit comedy? Is it
comedy in general or me?
That's what I'm asking. Is like this it might just be the industry, right? Where there's like always these opportunities, they fall through.
Yeah, my story isn't different than anyone else's. It's just, it's either fortunate or unfortunate. And my sister, my mother, and I, and all my friends that aren't in comedy make fun of it all the time, that all of my friends are successful. Like every single one I started with is like uber successful, like crazy, like you couldn't even imagine.
So do you feel cursed?
No. Maybe I used to.
Yeah.
But no, I never felt cursed. I didn't even think it was bad luck. I guess I just thought, I don't know what I thought.
I mean, do you look at them with envy? Do you even want what they...
No. Right? I never did, because I know how hard they worked to get there. And that's the thing. They wanted to be comics. And that's you asked me why I still do it. Stand-up comedy brings other things. It's a fact, it always has and it still does. And I always was using stand-up comedy as a stepping stone for something else. And it still brings that.
Right.
Like, sometimes when one of my friends will see me perform, they'll remember I exist and then put me in something else. So those guys got all these amazing things, television shows, movies and stuff, because they were good stand-ups, and people are seeing them all the time. But they worked hard. They went every night, whereas I would go to a Jets game or go to the theater, and they would be like, I can't do that at night. I perform every night. And they sacrificed those things to get where they are. So I was never... was I jealous? Absolutely. But they were jealous of me during COVID because I was the only comic working. You should have seen, Attell would call me up. It's like, I just want you to know I'm very jealous. And I'm like, you're kidding,
With
right?
the cars, the Jim Gaffigan.
Exactly.
No, what's interesting to me is a lot of people, it sounds like they start off as comics and then they end up on SNL or they have movies, but they just actually want to be comics. They hate doing all that other shit, but they make a ton of money by making the movie, the TV show.
It depends who it is. Steve Martin never wanted to be a comic. His plan was what he did. Dave Attell only wants to be a comic. He's been asked to do 100 things. He was asked by Ray. We used Ray Romano very early on. I totally helped his career because I used to help him with these mics. My friend used to run a mic, and I used to tell you got to use this guy, and so he asked him to be a writer on the show because he wanted Dave Attell, and he just can't do it. He can't sit. He just wants to do comedy. He just wants stand up.
Right. But so you're in this position where stand up is in the service of potentially getting other work.
That's the way I've always looked at it.
Yeah.
I believe my friends know that as well. They always know I wanted something else, that stand-up wasn't for me. But staying in it provides enjoyment. It provides a social activity at this point. And it definitely can bring you to another level. I mean, of some sort. I mean, as recently, just getting that TBS thing was because I was doing something with Sarah. We're best friends and we hang out all the time. But I think sometimes she forgets that I do stand up or that I do anything. She just forgets because I'm not a professional. So then when she sees me, I'll get something. Or it happens a lot. If I open for somebody, then I get another job.
Right.
So or I get to do a podcast like this. I think that's really cool and I like that. So yeah, it's always been something else. Working out something else, but I do like meeting people and I like the other stand-ups sometimes. Obviously there's a bunch of jerk-offs too, but most of the time I enjoy hanging out with stand-ups. It used to be fun going to a diner after the show. They're not open anymore late at night. Up. Yeah, it's really bad. That was the best.
There's only one 24-hour diner I know of in Jersey at this point, around here.
Which one?
It's fucked up.
Tell me.
It's called Chit Chat.
Where's it located? I need to know. Because the TikTok diner used to be the one.
I used to go there a lot.
So after we do a show outside,
tragedy. It's a real tragedy.
If I'm whoever I'm with, that we'd stop at every time, and now you can't do that.
I went there at 10 p.m. one night, and they were like, the kitchen's closed.
Me too, in Jersey, down the shore.
I was like, what the hell are you talking about?
It's a real travesty. It's
all we had.
Horrible.
It's all we had, really.
And that was the best part about doing a gig that you could drive to, is that you would stop at the diner and talk about the night. Maybe even see some of the people from the show at the diner.
Yeah, amazing.
And that was the fun. And they've taken all the fun out of, now it's just a job. And the fun part, like having something to eat after and talk. That's what comedy was all about. At the Improv, when the Improv used to be open on 44th and 9th, we'd all go to the Westway Diner and hang out. And again, I was just with these guys that were better than me and funnier, and they were cool. I'm an excellent audience. I think that's the other reason.
You laugh.
I laugh uncontrollably. These guys, but they're the best.
Right.
They make me laugh hard because they're really funny. So a lot of times when I meet somebody normal and they think they're funny, I'm like, dude, it's awful. What do you do? I'm spoiled, but I still laugh at people that aren't professional because I find lots of stuff funny. I'm a good audience. I think that's the thing, I don't know.
When you were young, like, 15, you wanted to be?
Oh, I talk about this all the time. I was the guy in high school that was going to make it. I was the guy that was going to make it.
Make what?
Make it.
It.
I was going to make it. I was the guy.
In what capacity?
Everybody's, this guy's going to make it.
Because you were studious?
He's going to be big.
And such?
No. Because I was in the plays.
Oh.
And all that kind of stuff.
So
I was the guy.
You've always been into that.
Oh, yes. I was they're like, this guy's talented. He's going to make it. He's going to make it. And then, those guys always end up in gay porn.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. No, not that.
Well, that's one of the brief pit stops.
But I make fun of it all the time because,
Well, but you did make it in some sense.
I did, and I've been on TV and stuff. But so I guess it's true. But
with artists, I'm always like, if you're drawing and not living on the street, that's kind of an accomplishment. If you're drawing to live.
I see. The problem is when you think about high school in general.
Yeah.
People look at that as a different thing. Like, unless you need to really make it. And if, I'm not married, I don't have any kids. So in that sense, I'm a loser. And everyone I know that would go to the high school reunion would be a loser. And unfortunately, you don't have to go to your high school reunions anymore because Facebook and social media, now we know what everybody's up to. You don't need to see. You keep in touch with the people you want to, and that's that. But
I went to my 10-year. It was great.
Recently?
No, that was probably like 5 years ago or something.
Oh, just 5.
But
okay.
I loved it.
I loved my
it.
5-year because I hung out with all the people from elementary school who I still like a lot, and the 10-year wasn't as great. I didn't like my graduating class. I liked the people that graduated before me and after me, and my class I didn't like so much. I still have extremely close high school friends, but mostly from different grades.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty much friends with everybody I've ever met. It's like
Except for those brothers you previously
stand
mentioned.
those two. I can't even.
I don't know who that is.
Oh, you look them up. They're awful. They know.
You're friends with almost
stole their
everyone you've ever
website
met.
years
You stole
ago.
their website, so you're both...
Before anybody, when people weren't doing that, I took their website, all their names they could possibly have. They're still mad, I heard, to this day. I've given it back, but the day
You
when
mean you sold it back?
I just didn't pay for it anymore. But I just let it go. And it was great because the day they found out, I found out through somebody else. They're like, some guy, it was a dream. It was 2 years in the making. I just held on to it. And they're like, why does Dave Juskow own your website? What? It was the best. Yeah. Other people paid me to help pay for it too because they didn't like them either, but I'm not allowed to disclose their names.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you find that when you're in a serious situation or serious relationship, you're supposed to be serious about certain things? Are you able to be?
No, I have trouble with that. Really, a lot of
Everything
trouble.
is kind of abstracted into a comedic moment.
Yeah, it's
Do
a
you get
problem.
do women complain about that when they're
All the time. It's not like I mean, I can be serious, but yeah, everything's like a sitcom to me.
Exactly. It's like a
real fucked
detachment,
up.
right?
It's a problem.
I've had it with art before where everything's a narrative and it's like...
Right. You see things differently.
Yeah, is narrative interesting enough for me right now? You start seeking out almost trouble because it's a better story. That's kind of a weird...
exactly what I do.
Yeah.
And I pretend I'm in a sitcom, that people are filming me right now, and I'll say things in a way I would never do in a normal circumstance, like you say, kind of just to see what happens. You're right. I mean, I guess it's like knowing math, and you see numbers or you see colors.
Yeah.
I just see... I can see this happening around me in a sitcom.
Scenarios. Kind of.
I don't know what I could tell, but that girl that was here that I was complaining about,
Sure.
that girl, one day she was going crazy and crying about how pretty she was, and I was sitting at her house. She has a studio, so I was sitting on her bed, listening to her go, I can't help it that I'm so beautiful. What do you want me to do? I was born this way. And I remember watching her, I'm like, this is fantastic.
Yeah, that's amazing.
This is the best thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, she was really crying. I mean, what a ridiculous thing, right? I mean,
It's amazing.
Right, but I'm like, I am watching theater right now, right in front of my face, and nobody will ever be able to... I just wish I could pull out my phone and do this, because she's doing almost a monologue. It was just like right out of a movie. You don't understand what it's like. I've always been pretty. You know what a burden that is sometimes? And I'm like, oh, I didn't say anything. I just stood there.
Yeah, you're
in
just
awe.
thinking about the... So
So that was one of those definite days. And then she, flips on a dime. I mean, she's really theatrical, and she's like, but you don't think I'm racist, right? So yeah, when you see stuff like that, I'm all in. Like I love it.
Well, yeah, I'm not even kidding in a sense. Your life sounds almost like a TV show. There's like these kind of shorter moments, these snippets.
That is what that is what my podcast is. I talk about my week, and everything is many times, not every week, but so many times, everything's like a sitcom. I mean, this girl kicked me in the balls and punched me in the face, I'm like, that's hilarious. And then she ran away.
So do you think either consciously or subconsciously you're setting that up sometimes?
Oh, definitely. I shouldn't have been hanging out with her in the first place.
Well, yeah,
she was crazy. It was my fault.
Never talked to anyone who said...
She was so pretty. We knew it was heading somewhere crazy. It's okay. I've definitely put myself in those. Many times on the podcast, I'll say, look, I only did this for you guys. I realized
story.
I needed to go out tonight to do this for the story. Yeah. Many times. My whole life. In my college yearbook, I had a black guy sit for me in my picture, because I said, years from now, this will be funny. Now, right now, it might not be as funny as it was 10 years ago.
It's pretty funny.
But the guy said, we set it up. I knew the guy.
You didn't
but
force
it says
them.
under Dave Juskow, it's a picture. It turns out he's Spanish, actually, but he looks black. His name was Hector. And he just, sat in for the picture for me. And it was a classic for years, because I knew years from now, this will be so funny. And
So your life is kind of predicated on finding the best joke.
I will
the
wait
best-
years for that gag, like I did with those guys with the the website. I will wait for the gag to happen.
So like at the end of the day, when you die, the way you'll measure your life is how funny it was, I assume.
Yeah, pretty much.
And
yeah.
it's been funny, right?
Well, that's the problem. I realize that when I die, nobody's gonna cry. They're gonna be, here's another thing this idiot did. You know, like it's gonna be like
But that's kind of cool too.
And no, it is cool. It should be a fun funeral because I have never had a bad time at a funeral. I don't get upset by that stuff. Ever. Never been to a bad one. I have a great time. I love seeing everybody. It's always fun.
What about the DMV? Because I have a good time at the DMV, personally.
No, I've had a bad time, but I did have a good time at the where they tow your car, which is a bad time for everybody in the city. This lady liked me, and she was just really kind. She gave me her cell phone number. I called her once. She's like, I'm in the shower. I'll be right down. She didn't charge me every day. So I do have experiences that are good. Oh, and now that you mention it, the DMV, I'll tell you that story another time. Because I ended up going to jail, so that wasn't a good one.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Right, so there's another one, right? I mean,
what do you take seriously? Anything?
Take something
Can you be
seriously.
offended?
Well, I don't like when I'm running out of money. I don't like that I'm poor sometimes.
Yeah, you don't just laugh that off.
No. Well, I mean, there is something funny about, like, I really thought I almost got kicked out of my apartment at, COVID and stuff, and I owed a lot of money, and there is something hilarious about it, but in the end it wasn't. There were many times during COVID I would wake up and go to the kitchen and be like to myself, I'd say it out loud, but we're not going to make it, are we? I mean, I don't know who I was talking to. I'm like, we're not going to make it.
There's no pets.
No, I had a pet, so I always think she's there. Her name was, I wrote a book about her, but I haven't told anybody about it yet. It's a great book. It's about me and my cat solving crimes. It's really good. I just haven't published it yet.
Wow.
I did it because...
How long is that?
How long is the book?
Yeah.
I think it's like 160 pages, maybe.
It
goes really quick.
That's what I'm interested in. Your output is very... in some ways regular, but in different mediums.
Yeah,
but
I try different things all the time.
Tempo seems even.
But this book, if it gets published, this will be the greatest thing I've ever done. This will make a fortune. I know it.
Why don't you just put it out?
By myself?
Yeah.
I was hoping to go the proper channels, I can, but everybody self-publishes, and it's embarrassing. I thought it'd be good if I could get a publisher.
Fair enough.
It's a really good book, and everybody likes it. Even the people that don't like it. Like I write for AARP magazine sometimes because I used to write for Maxim magazine. I forgot about this now. I used to write for Maxim magazine. It was the best. Back in the day when Maxim was Playboy. I don't know if you know. You're too young.
No, I do.
Maxim used to be the new Playboy magazine. So writing for that was the greatest. My assignments were go to Washington, D.C. to find DC's 10 hottest au pairs, and I would interview hot girls, and they sent me to Tijuana for stories and stuff. It was fantastic. And, all on they'd pay for everything. It was,
it's crazy.
It was the greatest. I forgot about that. I was a reporter for a while. And now all those guys work at AARP magazine because they're older.
That's
and they're
crazy.
like, okay, now do an article
Is that a good magazine?
about arthritis. Yes, it is actually. They have an online presence called The Arrow, which is actually quite good and not totally for old people.
Would have never thought that.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. So my friend writes for that magazine, and I gave him the book, and he goes, I hate your book. I hate it. But I couldn't put it down, and I hate you even more now.
Interesting.
So, right, so that's a good...
Something about... It's a cat, right?
Yeah.
Something about cats. Amazing.
I love my cat, so I immortalized her. She's a black cat. And I loved her. It was the only thing I ever loved. That's the only time I got upset when somebody died.
Yeah?
I don't think I'll
That's
ever
sincere?
get upset. It was so sincere. It was a mess. It was the only thing I ever loved. I never thought I'd like an animal. I never had one growing up. This cat just kind of came to me, and I loved it. And I never got another one because I couldn't stand leaving. I was like so attached. I hated being in a hotel room knowing she was alone. Is that weird? I don't know. I know people love their pets, so I know people get it. It
depends on, your general worldview. I think...
Well, I think that was the thing. I didn't feel... I don't know. That was the only thing I ever loved.
Truly.
I realize that now when I think about any of the girls that I might have said I love. No, it's just this cat.
You weren't lying. It's just.
I might have been lying.
You think you might have been lying?
Maybe I thought that's what I was supposed to say.
Well, again, if it's a script, if it's a sitcom, then it's what you're supposed to say.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I asked this girl to marry me in 2020 because she was going through a hard time. I'd known her for a long time, and I really wanted to marry her. I mean, I really liked her a lot. I might have even been in love with her. And I was trying to help her because she was going through some drinking problems. And so I said, so why don't we get married? I texted. Let's just get married, because she wanted to live with me and get, I said, well, let's get married. I didn't hear back. Then she died like a month later. She got drunk and hit her head and, went to bed, which is what Bob Saget did.
Right, you were telling me.
Yeah, and she wake up. Now, most people would find that tragic, but it's hilarious. I mean, I don't know why. It's like her parents call me once a week as if I was their son-in-law or whatever. And so that's not funny. But there is something funny about it. There's something funny, and that's my life. I finally asked a girl to marry me for the first time. And she died a month later. How is that not funny?
Yeah. It's...
And here's the best part. I go over her parents' house, I guess a couple months after she was dead. I couldn't see her because it was COVID and everything. So I go over their house. Maybe she died in October. I went there in June. And they're big drinkers too. And we were drinking. And then they're like, oh, let's order some Chinese food. So they're sitting on either side of me, and I'm sitting in the middle. And we're eating the Chinese food. And then they just start yelling at each other. It's your fault she's dead. No, it's your fault. You should have been watching her. No, it's your fault. I'm like, is anybody going to eat that egg roll? And I definitely said that because I'm like, what am I supposed to do here? But I mean, tell me that's not funny. I mean, that's the kind of shit that only happens in sitcoms, but it happens to me all the time.
Oh, yeah. No, that's what's so strange about it.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. My life truly is a sitcom. And
you're in it. There's no reason to be on one.
Want me to do a show like that, but nobody would ever believe it. So that's why I think I don't tell the stories on stage. Nobody would ever believe that the HR director at my last firm tried to kill me at the office Christmas party. People would be like, you got to go to HR. I'm like, you're not understanding. It was the HR person. I made her so angry somehow. I got her so riled up. She was at the party, she was drunk, and she kept whispering in my ear, I'm gonna fuck you up, you think you're so fucking great, fuck you. Like it was hot, kind of. I just found her attractive. And I think I asked her out once, like, or something, but it was stupid. It was like this thing, I'm like, hey, you live on the Upper West Side, right? And she's like, yeah. I'm gonna ride my bike around your house this weekend. You come outside, we'll have a conversation. That's what I said, right? Now I think that's the funniest thing anybody's ever said.
With the accent?
Yeah, with the accent.
Sure.
Right.
It's like Rocky Balboa.
Or that, or John Travolta, right? It was something stupid. And she told all the other girls at my office, like, he's going to ride his bike. And I'm like, what the fuck is the matter with you? First of all, I don't even think he has a bike.
Yeah, I was going to say, you have a bike?
Second of all, he said that to all of us. He's never done it once. So it was just another person that just, some people just don't get it. You think that's funny? Isn't that a funny thing to say to somebody?
Yeah, of course.
All right, that's what I thought.
Did your parents have a sense of humor?
No. My mother's never laughed except when something bad happens to me. I say, this girl kicked me in the balls today. Like, that's the only time she's ever laughed. Or when somebody makes fun of me.
So you were just like a pain in the ass as a child to them? Because if you're not making someone laugh and you're a prankster
Yeah, as a matter of fact, here's a good example. My mother doesn't like, using curse words or anything. And my act was completely clean.
Yeah.
But I came up with these two bits that were dirty. And when I say dirty, stupid dirty.
Right.
And that changed my whole trajectory of stand-up. I went to this next level with these two bits. The opening, this is so stupid, but it used to kill. The opening was Mr. Magoo. I don't know if you ever heard of him having anal sex. It was the stupidest fucking something like that, right? It was stupid, but it used to kill. And then I'd close with Bill Cosby on the HBO Def Jam comedy shows. You go, and the man ate the woman's pussy for an hour. It was just that, and it used to kill. And in between, everything was clean. It was just clean. So one time, my parents came to see me at this place, and it was one of the best sets I've ever had in my life. And my dad, who didn't like me very much, was smacking his hands to the table laughing, especially at the Bill Cosby one. I remember seeing it, and I was like so happy. And everyone was laughing. The staff is laughing. Everybody. It was the greatest night of my life. And my mother's just sitting there with a fucking puss on her face because I'm using bad language this one time. Everything else was totally clean. But this one bit. But you would think she'd be like, well, he really is doing... I'm so happy to see my son doing well. But what a bitch. I've always remembered that face. Because you will always, and any comic will tell you this, point out the one person in the room who's not laughing. I don't know if you know Greg Fitzsimmons, but he hosted the Porn Awards, which all my friends have hosted the Porn Awards once. It's the worst gig on the planet. These guys are so coked up or whatever, they are not paying attention. And so he said everybody was pretty much laughing, except for Dave Navarro.
Sure.
He's from the Chili Peppers, right?
No, briefly.
Right, briefly. So he's not laughing. And that's all he was talking about. Like, fucking Dave Navarro wouldn't laugh. And the best is he goes on Howard, I mean, I know Greg and he told me the story anyway, but he goes on Howard Stern and he's telling the story. And this motherfucker, I said, I'm going to get him to laugh. But he would not laugh. And it destroyed the whole set because you always see the one person. You're laser focused on. I don't know why. But then Howard had Dave Navarro on, and he said, fuck that guy. He wasn't going to make me laugh. I'm going to fuck him up. Like, I didn't like that guy. Like, he did it on purpose, it turns out, which is even funnier.
Can you describe the feeling of bombing and of succeeding?
So,
I don't know
years ago,
what's the opposite of bombing? Killing?
Yeah.
Is the accurate terminology?
Oh, yeah.
They still say that?
I have done both. Yes. Oh, absolutely.
You've bombed,
now, some people, like
killed.
David Tell says he bombs all the time. He's an idiot. He doesn't really know what bombing is. I have bombed. You know, I've gotten booed off stage. In Atlantic City recently, I don't know, 7 years ago, I got booed off stage. My friend Russ Maneve said there were more boos than in a haunted house. It was that bad. But I got booed off stage. But at this point in my life, it was hilarious. I thought it was really funny. And then when we went out to the casino, I saw a lot of the audience members, and they were like, oh, tough set. And I'm like, oh, yeah. But I was laughing. And I'm like, I know, wasn't that funny? Because I just didn't care. My friend, I woke up the next morning. I was sharing a hotel room with my friend. And he goes, are you all right? And I'm like, why? Oh, that was a rough. I'm like, oh, that happens to me all the time. I don't know why I don't care. But back in the day when it was, meaningful, I don't know, before I could pass things off like that, it was devastating.
Yeah.
Devastating. And many times I've done a set where people aren't laughing. It's not bombing, but you're not doing the best.
Sure.
But it's devastating. It's not like you want to quit, but it's embarrassing. And it's
what's the
embarrassing
opposite
in front
feeling?
of your friends. And then there's the euphoria of that one night. I have a vision in my head, or that TV show, where I have the vision in my head. Because I guess it doesn't happen to me as often as maybe it happens to other people. But there's multiple times where I've done really well and I can, you're just looking out and it is very uplifting. It's exciting. And I get that feeling. The what?
Could you imagine it being addictive for certain people?
Oh, absolutely. Because a lot of times when I'm seeing my friends, I look around at the audience and I soak it in myself, what maybe they're experiencing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. They're making this whole room just laugh so hard. I look around, I look at their faces, and it's exciting. Even when somebody else is doing it, especially if it's a friend. I'm fascinated with watching a crowd, somebody destroy like that. I mean, I've seen Dave obviously really do it, especially at the Comedy Cellar late at night on a Tuesday morning at 1 a.m, and I've seen Jeff Ross do it. And then there's different ways of killing. Like, I've seen Sarah do that well, but like, she's not that kind of comic.
Yeah.
Where people are just dying laughing. Then there's people that don't do that. But the people but that's okay. You're there for a different reason. She still makes you laugh hard, but it's not, those kind of guys that I've seen just absolutely destroy. And you're like, wow, I'll never get to this.
Yeah.
Sometimes you tell yourself that or something. I don't know. It's fun. Sometimes when you go to see a Broadway show, like The Book of Mormon, have you seen that?
I've never seen it.
So it's great and it's really funny. I see a lot of Broadway shows, and it's brilliant. But people are laughing, especially at most all the Broadway shows, at like something that's so stupid, and they're laughing hard.
Does that bother you that
yes,
they laugh at the stupidest
things?
It
bothers me so much, and every comic I know, if they go to see theater, gets it too.
But do they
they're
feel
laughing so easy? It's so easy.
But So I used to show paint. I used to have a gallery, and I often found the painting I thought was the worst would sell first.
Really?
Or often when the other ones wouldn't sell. And I couldn't figure out why. I still don't know why. So I wonder if with comedians, like, does it happen that you think you have this great joke and other comedians love it, but then the general public doesn't get it, they don't appreciate it, and then you tell some stupid Cosby joke and
Right.
people are dying.
Yeah.
Does that make you resent the crowd in some weird way?
That's a good question. I think it does.
Yeah, because you're like, what the...
I think you get
feel
upset
like
by that, but then you let it go because you did well anyway. But yeah, there it is. Just what I told you. That stupid Mr. Magoo joke that nobody even knows who that is anymore used to just kill. It was a great way to open. And I'm telling you, it just brought me to this next level. It was weird. These two open and a close just made a world of difference.
Yeah, it's so strange.
Sometimes it's just one thing that, makes a difference. Like my friend Rachel used to, she was always a good comic. Then she got married.
Yeah.
And she just started talking about her husband being a firefighter. And she went to this kind of next level. She had all this new material, but it was great. Or Gary Goldman, who, went to the, a lot of the comics that I've seen over the years, they get this one thing going, this idea or something, and then they go to this next level. I mean, I definitely saw that with Sarah, but I don't know what it was that brought her to the next level. She used to just she was just a cute little, she's always been the cute little girl with the potty mouth.
Right.
But there was something that had to bring her to the next level. I don't remember what it was at the time.
Yeah, it's often something very mundane.
Yeah.
But they've
usually
developed
stupid.
the craft, the skill to then be ready for that mundane
She
moment.
used to have this joke I never understood, but people liked, what was it? I was depressed, but then I realized I was just thirsty. And people used to laugh, but I never understood the joke. But
by understand, you don't mean rationally, just like...
I'm like, I don't know why people are laughing. Yeah. But
do you believe in this formulaic kind of like...
Well, I think the problem is that there are people in the crowd who just somehow identified with that exact joke.
That idea,
They
yeah.
might have been depressed and gotten a drink of water and then they felt better. So maybe there were 7 people in the crowd who actually went through that, not me.
Right.
So I didn't understand. But that's the thing. You're trying to hit the entire crowd, but sometimes you only hit a couple.
Yeah. And the crowd's different every time.
Every time. So, I always open with that stupid joke about, weed being legal. And I always talk about, did Biff Tannen go into the future? And
I like
change
that
the
joke,
past?
but yeah, you got to be a certain age to know who Biff Tannen is.
Maybe 2 people get it every time, but it makes me so happy every time if somebody does
So
get
you
it.
need that movie reference.
But that's the thing. Back to the Future is so... I've always talked about stuff that's 20 or 30 years before. It's been my problem. But
you're not
future.
in the moment. You're not interested in the particularities of the moment.
No.
You like the past?
Yeah, that's all. When I first started in the 80s, I was talking about like people from the 60s.
Well, that's why the time traveling
that's
class.
It's a thing. You're absolutely right. I used to have this joke that used to kill that, and and Jon Stewart to this day makes fun of it, and he'll say, "Are you still doing the Ernie Douglas?" I'm like, "Shut up," because he knows I'm not, and he's just giving me shit. And I'm like, you've already won. Is this necessary to give me shit? Like last year, I used to do this character from this TV show from My 3 Sons, which is a show from the 60s, and he used to kill, like in high school. You can't explain it to anybody who has never seen the show. You can't explain it to somebody that used to see the show. It was just one of those phenomenons. In high school, I did it in the play Grease. They made me say it because it was so popular. It was like a Simpsons episode where the Bart goes, I didn't do it. And then everybody's laughing and you don't know why. And it was just this bit, and I would say, well, gee, I didn't think you'd be so sore. I couldn't follow it. I had to get off stage, and then nobody could follow it. And you don't know why, and I couldn't explain it. I don't know if I have it on tape, and even if I did, people would probably think the tape was doctored.
Yeah, that's surreal.
I know, it's so crazy. But that was from 30 years before when I was doing it, so I've never updated my material.
Can you remember the first moment getting validation from a joke?
I remember the first time I went on stage, I guess.
But even before, as like a young...
Oh.
Like, was your identity about making people laugh?
Yeah, I guess so.
From the
because
beginning?
definitely, I guess I was definitely known as funny. Yeah, I could go back in junior high. Yeah, Because I could tell you in junior high, and even before that too, but definitely junior high, there was this Mel Brooks movie called High Anxiety, and he sang a song in it. And I used to sing that song in the class, and I would go around with a microphone and sing the song. And I had everybody trained so they would do the other lines. I'm like, so where are you from? And they're like, Cincinnati. Cincinnati, love that big red machine. And I would sing the song before the teacher came in. And everybody loved it, and it was funny. And
But again, this is more like a theatrical production.
Exactly. Yeah. That's all I ever wanted
that's
to do.
Your thing.
Was sing and dance and do happenings,
Yeah, happenings is a good way to put it.
Yeah, stand-up was never the plan, but I was funny. So where do you put funny? It made sense. People would always say, you got to do stand-up, you got to do stand-up.
Does something like Curb Your Enthusiasm interest you? That kind of...
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely.
That
well, that's me. That is, remember, people think it is me because I will, like Seinfeld and Larry David, talk about, I go to this restaurant called the Isle of Capri, where they have the best chicken parm in the city. But for some reason, every time I go there, they won't give me Parmesan cheese. And I have a problem with this one waiter. And he's like, you have enough cheese. I'm like, but I want the Parmesan that you put on the table. You're giving it to everybody else. And I was like, I don't know why this guy won't give it. So that's all I ever talk about all the time, that this guy, I even took a picture. They have the Parmesan cheese at the hostess table. But the guy won't let me, I don't know whether he's doing it to me or whether he's just so insulted that I'm going to put Parmesan on the chicken parm. It's the weirdest thing, but I'm obsessed with it, and I love talking about it for hours.
So in between the two formats of Seinfeld or Curb, if you had to do
it's
a show,
mix. Oh, for me,
what do you
probably
prefer?
Larry David I'm closer to because
Curb.
Everybody says nobody knows your rules, Juskow, which they say nobody knows your rules, Larry.
So that kind of.
I have rules. I have ways about people conducting themselves or whatever. I'm like, when you come to my house, you do this or you do that, you conduct yourself as a person, whatever it is. I definitely have rules that I've set for other people, but they don't know about them.
Interesting.
So that's definitely Larry David. And I do so many Larry David-like things. I think everybody thinks they do, but people just tell me that's what I do. I'm trying to not be that person sometimes, but it's difficult to get out of.
Well, you're 58.
Yeah, exactly. So
I mean,
he's a little older than me, so. But yeah, you get stuck in that way. You get stuck in it.
Yeah.
But I love talking about those little things. I would be like, yeah, do you see the way that guy was looking at me? I mean, that was messed up, right? You saw that too, right? I mean, I'll definitely do that. And, and I love when somebody will get on board like, that was messed up. That's why I like Larry or when they go onto it, they're like, when they agree. That's the best.
They riff on it.
Yeah, people play along.
Typically I wrap it up with a joke, but we got to invert it somehow. Because you already told jokes.
Well, I didn't really tell any jokes. I just tell stories. That's the problem. I don't have any punchlines. See, if I had punchlines, I'd be a really successful comic.
Yeah, that's just not... Like, if I remember, again, the Steve Martin bio, he's talking about how he just doesn't want punchlines. That's not what he's seeking. He's seeking...
I would like to seek punchlines. I don't mind telling you. That would be fantastic.
He would like to?
I would like that very much.
Okay. If I recall, his thing was like, I want it to feel like inside jokes amongst friends, but in a bigger scale.
Which is what he did.
Yeah, and I watch the clips now, and I'm like, this isn't funny at all. It doesn't make sense.
That's what I was doing by accident, because I don't have any punchlines, except, maybe for that TV show, I remember Attell gave me a couple of punchlines.
He gave them to you?
Yeah, because he would always help.
Gifted.
Yeah. Well, he's a genius. I mean, he's a true comic genius. And I think when all is said and done, if people didn't consider, if you throw out George Carlin and Richard Pryor because they came first, I think people would agree that Dave Attell's the greatest comic.
Interesting, yeah.
Chappelle would say that, Chris Rock would say that. They all know he's the best, but he's still just a comic. He'll still never be at that level. Because when he's on TV, it doesn't translate.
So let's invert the joke. Can you come up with serious life advice?
Well, if you're being serious or do you want me to tell a joke, I mean, the serious, and I told this to the kids I was teaching on the last day of school.
Yeah. The
best advice for life is, and everybody says this, but if you want to, when I was telling those kids, if you want to be a writer, you got to live, and you got to go out when somebody says, hey, do you want to do this, and you don't want to do it, you need to do it so you can experience this. The problem with television is that most of the writers don't experience anything. They don't experience half the stuff you have or I have because they're just in Hollywood and they're just doing nothing. They don't have the kind of life that I do, where the HR director is trying to kill you at an office Christmas party. They're not going to have those stories, right?
Yeah.
They probably went to Harvard, and then they started writing for television. So maybe they might have a couple of fraternity stories, but you know what I'm saying? I don't think they have
I agree.
life lived stories. And I'm not saying to be like Hemingway and go out and go to war or something, but you got to put yourself in a situation. Try not to make it dangerous. Although
it's kind of part of it. You know, I always talk about why do I care about a 30-year-old painter making paintings. In the past, you look at the timeline in the back of the book. Person had pneumonia from 15 to 20, went to World War I, lost an arm or something, married, had 4 kids. Then they made a painting. Maybe they made 25 paintings and they all worked and had something in them. But now there's just this kind of urgency to be a career that, I don't know why we even pretend to care about the opinions of 20 to 30-year-olds. Looking back on my own, opinions.
Well, it might be different now with all the stuff they've experienced. I've been talking about anybody born in like 1997 or something. I mean, look what they've gone through. Just September 11th and a worldwide pandemic, school shootings, weather patterns nobody's ever seen before.
But don't you feel that in those things aren't...
But I still hate them.
Experienced. Like...
Right. No, they're not personal experiences.
No, they're less real than your relationship with your cat.
But it's like...
I mean, because if that was a global pandemic, right? If that was... Like, even like saying it now, I feel it's paper thin. Like, I know that bad things happened, people died. But did that really feel like a global pandemic?
Well, the other thing is, maybe all these things have happened before, but now with social media, we know about them more.
Oh, you wouldn't... I would have had no idea. I got it. I would have thought I had a bad flu.
Nothing. All this there wouldn't have been any shutdowns if this happened in the 80s.
You wouldn't know.
Nobody could have worked from home. You might not have even found out it was happening.
Yeah, people would have been sick.
People would have been sick, and you wouldn't have understood why, and they wouldn't have been able to close anything down.
Yeah.
So that's the weird part too. I mean, what do you just because we were able to, we did, but that wouldn't have happened in 1988.
Right. And even 9/11, it's just like it changed things, but I didn't. Did I experience it? Even being from New Jersey.
No, I guess I'm saying in the kind of world they live in, which is just, I think about that because, it used to be where like goddamn kids don't respect nothing, but now you feel a little bad for those kids, like, which is different.
You should in some sense, I think.
They didn't get to graduate or go to the prom, some of them, with COVID and stuff. So.
Oh, it's true.
I think about that, but you're right. But they still need the life experiences, so.
I think that's good advice for artists, like.
Well, these are writers. They're going to be writers, so yeah, that's good. It's good advice for any kind of artist, of course. Because even if you're podcasting, what are you talking about? Yeah. I've been on people's podcasts where they're just, I'm like, they don't prepare. They don't have anything to say.
You talking about this?
No, not at all. No, I love this. This is exactly what it is.
Yeah,
you set it up like this. This is beautiful. I felt bad for talking so much and so quickly. And
no, it's about you.
I hope it's okay because I feel like I'm not in the moment of how kind of chill this podcast is, which I like.
No, it's all good.
It's certainly not what I expected, but I love it. I like it better.
Thank you. Well,
I've had a really good time.
Yeah, it's a great note to end it on.
Yeah.
And let's quickly remind people of all the various things they should check out, especially the Billy Joel podcast.
Right. Well, I got the Billy Joel A to Z podcast. Right now we're on the W's. We didn't start the fire. I don't know when this comes out. But you can see our back catalog. Then I have this podcast called Juskow in the City, which I changed. It used to be called The Nightfly, but what I realized is that all these people were listening around the world, especially in the United States, not in New York City, and they were fascinated by my New York City experiences that a lot of people don't have. So I called it Juskow in the City. And so, it's fun, and I just talk about my life, which sometimes turns out to be very interesting. And weird, and it's not like other people's. So, and then I do the Comedy Cellar Nightly Show on Tuesdays live on YouTube at 6:00.
Is that live from the cellar?
Sometimes it's live from the cellar. Sometimes it's virtual from my house.
Gotcha.
It depends on the producer if he's in Texas or New York. He somehow goes back and forth. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm. What else? The cat book. You got to find a publisher.
Well, I know. I got to find a publisher. It's really great. It's called Selena in the Case of the Noble Bachelor.
Can I read it?
I could give you a copy when I see you. I'll be here in 2 weeks.
A physical copy?
Yeah, I made hard copies.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I would love for you to read it. It's a really easy read.
What else? What's a good Is there a recording of a stand-up set that people should check out? Is there a show that you wrote for that you find a particular joke or moment to be relevant?
I'm on that. I don't like to talk about it because I look horrible in it, but I'm on that show Crashing on HBO.
Don't know it. Crashing.
I don't like to talk about it because I come out in a towel and I don't look very attractive. And on the DVD extras, they make fun of my boobs. So I don't like to talk about it. But it's funny, every time I've been on a show, I'm always part of the DVD extras, which I guess is good.
That's a concise explanation of your life in some way.
It's true. I'm
interesting.
just a guest star of the show, but I guess I make an impact. And so I remember when I was on the Sarah Silverman Program, they did the DVDs, and I was playing the most obnoxious person ever. And they were interviewing the director and the producer and Sarah, and they're like, "Oh, there were no auditions. We knew exactly who to call." And and then they cut to me just doing stupid stuff, and then they have Sarah, and they're like, "Oh, we were watching him work, and we're watching the TV screen. And some girl came over my shoulder, like, I know a guy like this," and they're like, "Yeah, you're looking at him right here. This is him. He's an idiot." So, but yeah, you could, I guess, see all those. You can see my Cars movie if you want.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
On Amazon.
We should screen it.
Make sure you're high. Oh, we should totally screen it here.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
We should totally do that.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, it's really, you got to be high. Everybody's got to be high. It's legal now, so it's okay. I'm
fascinated by that idea.
Serve drinks and get high. That's a great idea. It's a fun movie to screen. It's ridiculous. And otherwise, I guess if you Google
the name of it again?
Turbocharge.
Turbocharge.
Yeah.
Is that a name of a car song?
No, we just...
It's a car reference?
Yeah, I think I just made it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we know the Cars don't care for the movie. At the end, we had them all become like comedians or something. Like that's the reason why the kid's brother left is because we had his brother become a bad stand-up comic at the end. Like a Where Are They Now thing. And that's not
You just
true.
made it up.
We made it up.
Yeah,
the guy didn't seem to get it. But it's based on truth. Anyway, yes, sorry. Michael, I had a really great time.
Same. Good talking. All right, so thank you.
Thank you.
What are you doing today? Yeah. What are you doing for the rest of the night?
Well, I might be going to the Cure concert at the Garden.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, my friend was going to think about it and see if we got tickets. Otherwise, I don't have any plans.
Still do it.
They just opened it here.
Wild One. Music by Dory Bavarsky and Mingja Chen. Next up, we have Matthew Forsyth. Enjoy your week.